Hello, tubers and connoisseurs, and welcome back to CollectRussia.com. This is the second part of our discussion about the Ushakov medal. And our ship captain, Igor Moiseyev, will discuss a certain aspect of that medal.
Well, important aspect that I want to start with is the prices. That's probably of practical value to collectors. We want to know what the current values are, how they're affected by completeness of the medal, the infamous chains that I mentioned before, and what were prices like in the past, especially going back to the early days before the internet. I think you might, some of our viewers might find it enlightening to see what the situation was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So anyway, let's get to it. First of all, current prices. Today's value of a really nice Ushakov medal with original chains, not necessarily in mint condition, they are rarely like that, practically never, but in decent condition with all the links present, with nice patina, but without scratches or dings or serious damage of any kind, with preferably old ribbon and definitely old suspension with original chains. I would say it's approximately $2,000 or so. So it's not really all that much, considering that a medal for valor these days, a World War II standard one, on a late type suspension, will probably run you close to 100. So if you remember, the difference in rarity is 1 to 300. So it's not 300 multiplied by 100. It never works like that, of course, in real life. But just to illustrate my point, the price differential is much smaller than that. We're talking maybe 20 times difference as opposed to 300 times difference in rarity. So the current price is that. I made an excerpt of some of our medals and prices that we handled in the past 10 years, and that was in our database from the days when internet was already available. So you may already, some of you may have seen it, those who have been with us long enough. But just to refresh it, in 2021, we had one in superb condition. And that was about $2,200. So it hasn't really changed, because in similar condition, it probably cost the same today. In decent condition, today's price is about $2,000. In 2020, it was $1,600. So significantly less. In 2018, $1,400, again for a nice example, not perfect but nice. To take a step aside, it's a very different situation price-wise for a documented medal. Of course, they are rarely available with paperwork, with a regional document, and the regional document may be either an orders booklet or a special document for a medal. There were medal certificates that were commonly issued with Medal for Valor or Medal for Combat Service. You rarely see one of the certificates where a medal, the Ushakov medal and the Hymn of Medal for that matter, entered. And of course, the biggest prize of all of them is to get a group that includes both Ushakov and the Hymn of Medal. Interestingly, the Hymn of Medal and Ushakov medal could be repeatedly awarded to the same person. So there were cases when the same man was awarded with two of the same. That would be extraordinarily rare. I can't recall when I've seen this, when I saw this last time. But more common, and still very rare, would be to find a group that includes Ushakov medal and the Hymn of Medal pair. And maybe it's actually a preferable situation for many collectors, because let's face it, how many Ushakov and the Hymn of Medals can you have in your collection? How many people can afford more than one of each? So it would be a perfect situation when you have two to the same man with award certificate in nice condition. We had just a set like that in 2018 for $6,500. So you can see it's not just a sum of the parts. So assuming Ushakov medal was at that time under $2,000, well under $2,000, $1,400, and the Hymn of Medal could be a little bit more, but in the neighborhood anyway. You put these two together and you don't get to $6,500, yet the rarity of a set of two commands this kind of prices. Unfortunately, you have to cope with the situation if you're planning to get a group. 2017, again, $1,400, haven't changed much. 2015, 2000. You see, there was actually a drop in the price from 2015 to 2018 for obvious reasons. Russian economy started to suffer. Russia was being shut off from the rest of the world because of situation with Crimea, because of all those things not so pleasant that were happening, and that affected the prices. If you go back more, there are some other examples of unusual medals. For example, we had in 2014 a medal to a sailor of a nuclear submarine, and not just a nuclear submarine, to a sailor of a boomer, strategic nuclear missile submarine. The medal was issued in 1971. Submarine was K408. It's a Yankee 1 by NATO designation, a very dangerous kind of animal, capable of destroying several towns at once with nukes. And the reason that the medal was issued is the crew took part in the trans-ocean voyage without ever surfacing. So they went from one ocean to another, and that was the first time in Soviet practice that they were capable of doing that without ever hitting the surface of the ocean. I assume that most of the crew, if not all, were awarded with various decorations. This particular sailor received medal, Ushakov medal, which was very uncommon at that time. So any post-war issues, I mentioned that before, be it a Hero Star, if it's a World War II award, in many cases, not in all, but in many cases, it would be very rare to see a post-war award of this medal. So Nakhimov medal is one of those rare cases where it's actually at a big premium if you know that this is a post-war award, especially if it's something interesting. And here we have something very interesting, in my opinion, and that's sold for $2,900. So again, compared to going price of about $2,000, it's 50% more for the reason that this was a very uncommon award. Other cases when award was extraordinary, 2013, we had an award to a submariner who reportedly took part in sinking 4 enemy ships at Sevastopol. Now, the claim may be exaggerated. We must understand that Soviet submarines, not only they suffered tremendous attrition, but they were also used during the war in the roles not suitable for submarines, supply missions.
Right.
In particular, landing naval parties, shore infantrymen, naval infantrymen to fight on enemy shore, and so forth and so on, evacuating civilians in some cases, even works of arts from besieged Sevastopol. And because of that, they were often not capable of doing their main job of actually sinking enemy ships. And another reason was that because of the early advances of the Germans, many of the bases were lost. So they didn't have proper care, proper maintenance. And that combined with, of course, limited experience of the crews, with the fact that to begin with, Russia always suffered from lack of seaports, as opposed to many other countries like Great Britain, case in point, or Netherlands, Spain, and Portugal. Even Germans had much wider access, especially by the time they captured France. And because of all of those factors, they did not have a tremendous success rate against enemy shipping. There were some ships sunk, even some warships, but Russians never scored a victory, a sinking of a major capital warship.
Okay.
The biggest ship Soviet Navy ever sunk was a destroyer, and it was incidentally a British destroyer during the Civil War.
Oh my God.
That was the biggest ship ever sunk by a Russian submarine against any other nation. Everything else was smaller craft, and in the end, the fair estimate that you can find in various sources that were published in the West is that they sunk approximately 200 various ships plus a number of smaller craft. such as barges and maybe fishing vessels and some small fry. So if you remember, the attrition was about 200. So they lost 200 for sinking of 200 enemy ships. Not a great success. So when Commendation said that he took part in sinking 4 enemy vessels at Sevastopol in the early days of the war, it was kind of a cumulative award. We have to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of claims were just erroneous. They often assumed that they sunk a ship. They attacked several times German ships in the northern seas, for example, and reported success, whereas in fact, like against Prince Eugen, I think, whereas in fact it wasn't true. The torpedoes missed. It was often very easy to think that there was a hit because torpedo did find something and exploded, but it could be a rock, it could be a cliff, it could be anything. So you can't always blame the captains for lying. In any case, he did survive. That was already extraordinary for a submariner. And he did fight at Sevastopol, so he participated in the war from the very early on, against reducing his chances of survival. And he probably did some damage as well. Russian submarines were very successful in the later days of the war, especially during the attempted evacuation of Germans from Crimea. They did sink some vessels. They were also instrumental in saving some landing craft and barges and things like that. So they played a role, without a doubt. And he obviously was one of the luckier of those submarines. So the price was $2,700 for that reason. Again, significantly more, not extraordinary, not exorbitant, but significantly more than a typical award to just a regular sailor. Some of them, of course, are more interesting than others, but a submariner always commands a premium. From 2007 to 2011, prices were pretty stable. This is interesting, actually, and they hovered around $1,900 to $2,000. This is interesting, I'm saying, because you would expect that there would be a tremendous spike around 2008. That's the time of the tulip market in Soviet metals, when prices literally exploded. I remember prices doubling every half a year, literally. Wow. And that was maybe for a couple of years, a situation going like that. It was absolute insanity. You didn't see quite as much of it with Ushakov metal and Nakhimov. My theory is that initially there was a proliferation of fakes on the market, and information wasn't as widely available yet. Paul McDaniel had already written his book, which was, of course, a huge step in helping collectors to see right from wrong. But it wasn't as comprehensive as the information that we have now. All of those things about tiny defects, tiny flaws of the die that we discussed, they were not available to collectors back then. In fact, internet was a fairly new thing. So many were not online. There were no websites where you could check and see the differences. So I think what kept prices stable were fakes. Many people were buying, unfortunately, and believing that they had the real thing. So that reduced both the demand and the prices of real metals. I've seen it in some other cases with some scarce awards that for some unexplainable reasons remained flat. 2006, another award to a submariner to $2,600. Again, a pretty high price for those years, for that time. And if we continue going back, and I brought some of our older catalogs before the internet age, or just on the dawn of the internet age. Let's look into August 2000 catalog. And what do we see here? This is, of course, the early days of Soviet collecting. Well, Ushakov medal, number 10,000 plus. Regular number, World War II issue, definitely. Not researched at that time. Research was often unavailable. It was always difficult to research naval awards before certain things happened, and I'll show you what. It's a completely different picture now. But back then, it was not always feasible. But at least we know that it was in decent condition. Chain connection of on the top of the original suspension device is broken. Chain is attached instead to the ribbon. You see that sometimes, that these little devices that hold the ribbon at the top, they're easy to break. They can be caught in clothes, for example. and they pretty easily pop off. And that's why the original recipient just connected the chains to the ribbon without thinking much of it. So that's a minus, but not a fatal flaw, of course. And that was $230. So compare this, 230, and what are we talking? 26. Well, 2,000 for a regular medal around year of 2007. So within 7 years,
tenfold.
The price increased close to eightfold, maybe. Yeah. Okay, another medal in really nice condition with original chain, complete original suspension, old ribbon, is $320. A bit more, but still very, very cheap. And going farther back, 1999 catalog, a year before the previous one. What do we have here? Ushakov medal and sterling number 390, visa document $540. Visa document, very rare to find visa document. And a little farther back, Ushakov medal, World War II, $340. So pretty stable around year 2000 or immediately before. There wasn't really that much happening. And then finally, the earliest catalog I have right now is 95. Look at this, $280. Curiously, $240 for Nakhimov medal, which was more scarce. But guess what? Ushakov was just more popular. So everybody assumed Ushakov should be costing more. And visa document, $370. So huge difference in price from 2000, from mid to late 1990s, early 2000s to forward to 2000, 2008, 2007, huge price differential. Then it kind of stayed flattened out. But I expect the prices to increase.
Why?
Well, the market is growing and the number of medals is not. And now fakes are less dangerous because of all the information that hopefully I try to disseminate.
That's right.
People find out on their own, all the websites that show original images. It all made it very difficult for fakers to sell their wares and make money on it. Because don't forget, fakes, especially of high quality, they do cost money to produce. So it makes it a very interesting situation when prices stabilized for a long time, but they'll probably break out. Now, that is to say, I'm not convincing anybody by any means to invest in Soviet medals just for investment's sake. I think it's crazy. You don't know, this market is not very liquid. It's not like buying stocks. You should be prepared to pay to the dealer and then to sell at a discount to a dealer, unless you have the market, unless you know collectors who are looking for metal, which is, I don't know how likely it is. So with that in mind, just keep it in mind that maybe not as an investment, but still a good way to preserve your money, and convince your better half maybe that it's not all wasteful when you collect Militaria. People actually made good money on it when they...
I'll give it a try. That should be
oh, I don't know. Now I'm in trouble. Now, after we spoke about that, let's discuss specific cases of some medals that I'm fortunate to have here, that I will show, and what they were awarded for, and what it took. And also very important point, how to research a medal.
right.
We already know that all of the wartime issues have a serial number. There is a book that was published in Russia not so long ago, and it is called just that, Cavaliers, Recipients of the Ushakov Medal. And it was in 2011 when it got published. It's now a rarity, so if you can find it, maybe on Amazon, by all means get it. The author is Yefimov, and again the title, it's in Russian, of course. Cavaliers of Ushakov Medal. You don't need to know Russian to find out things about the recipient. This is very interesting, and I'll explain why. In this book, the medals are organized numerically by the serial number. So if you look up the serial number, you will find the name of the recipient, and you may also find the basic information about this recipient, even where he served, just very briefly, and that will give you a key to further research it and to find out really a lot, to find out even things like award commendation. So in this particular case, let's look at this one first, 10660. So we look at the medal number. So here's the book, and now all it takes is finding the serial number on the pages of this book, 10660. And here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, we found the person. His name is Orlov Ilya Stepanovich. He was Chief Petty Officer of Pacific Fleet, which is quite unusual actually. And he got awarded in October of 1945. Remember that the dates are in the European style. So you first see the date, the day, then the month. It's October. So 5 of October of 1945. Well, we immediately know what campaign this award was for. Pacific Fleet, Japan. October of 1945. The war was over by that time. But what was the final phase of the war? Of course, Japan. It was the Soviet blitz against Japan, which already makes this award very interesting. This is a small minority that was awarded for fighting the Japanese. And of course, the whole Soviet part in the war lasted for just a couple of weeks. And Japanese were in their death row, basically. It was already after the United States dropped the nuclear bombs.
Right.
The first one, at least, at Hiroshima. And Japanese were at the end of their rope. Stalin just plain and simple wanted to get a chunk of territory in the Far East as quickly as possible. That was the only reason for the war. In fact, Soviet Union and Japan had a non-aggression treaty. That's why Soviet Union was relatively safe at the time of the Battle of Moscow. They through their spies, knew that Japan is going to adhere to the non-aggression treaty and not attack the Soviet Union from the east. And for that reason, it was possible to transfer a number of those Far Eastern regiments and divisions to the west just in time for the Battle of Moscow, for the Soviet counterattack in the Battle of Moscow. And otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to counterattack the Army Group Center. So an interesting award right away. Now, the next step, even if you don't know the Russian language, would be for any collector to simply put the name down in Russian alphabet. And I'm saying simply, it's simple enough for me. But the way you can do it is you can find on Google, use Google Translator. And if you use Google Translator, the actual website, not the fast link, but the actual website, you will be able to see there's a drop-down menu with a keyboard. And that keyboard will provide, if you select Russian language, translation from Russian, it will provide you Russian characters. Russian characters, these are not hieroglyphs, we are not talking Japanese or Chinese, Mandarin, we are talking European essentially language. Think of Russian alphabet as Greek alphabet. That's what most Russian characters are based on Greek letters. So you'll be able to navigate it and to input this exact name in exact same order. In Russian usage, it's typically last name that goes first, then the first name, and then the patronymic, the name of the father. So the name of the person is Orlov Ilya Stepanovich, but you don't need to even sound it. You would need to just simply use the Russian keyboard. There are other ways to do it, but this is probably the simplest for Google Translator. You copy it from what you wrote, just make sure you have it exactly as it's spelled here in the book. And then you use one of the archival websites, Russian archival websites, to find out the rest. And how you do it, again, you go to one of those websites. There are two that I use all the time. One is called podvignaroda.ru.
And you can
I will
type it up in English too.
You can type, of course, you do type
in
it
Latin letters.
In Latin letters. Podvig Naroda, which means feet of the people. And another one is pamять-naroda.ru. Both of them provide link to original Russian and Soviet archival documents. And here in front of you is the example of just what kind of information we can get from those archival websites using a simple search. Of course, it has to be in Russian, but you immediately get, if you're lucky, information on this single individual. You may get several by the same name, patronymic and first name. That happens. Then you will just use your discretion. You'll understand that, yes, there's only one Ushakov medal on the list.
Or maybe
and you already know how it's
compare
spelled.
the date of birth or something.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, date of birth is one of the search factors. You can use this as a search term, and that will narrow down your search. I don't like to do it immediately simply because there are sometimes errors, so you may read out accidentally kind of throw the baby with the water. But it may help in cases when the name is extremely common. Here we found it immediately, and what you can see here is the basic information that practically every Soviet award commendation has. It was written by the superior officer explaining why such and such person, serviceman or servicewoman sometimes, need to be or deserve to be awarded with a particular decoration. So we see here first that it says award card or award commendation, and then the rank and position of the prospective recipient. It says that he was a bosun of the torpedo or small boat, basically, of minesweeping detachment or squadron of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, it's interesting also, abbreviation is a bit odd. You typically see a 3-letter abbreviation, but here it's a part of the Pacific Fleet. The Soviet Union had 2 fleets, basically, and this is Northern Pacific Fleet. Or at least it was called at that time, then later it changed. He was Chief Petty Officer, his rank, and recommendation is to award him, then his name here, and then recommendation to award him initially with the Order of the Red Star. Later, a superior officer, somebody next in line of command, decided to change it to Ushakov Medal, which is somewhat of a downgrade. Order of the Red Star, being an order, is a higher decoration.
Right.
It's much less valuable to us today because it's far more common than Ushakov Medal, of course. But back then, it was a bit of a disappointment, probably, if he knew that his officer recommended him for a Red Star to get an Ushakov Medal. He was born in 1917. This is number 1 entry. You always see that in Russian award documents, in Russian commendations. Nationality means ethnic background, Russian. Line number 3, very important, member of the Communist Party. If it says not a member, you will understand it even without knowing Russian, but if it has a date, then you know he was a member from 1942. December is the month. Date of a place of birth, this is omitted usually, it's hidden in the original documents for privacy reasons in the online documents that are available. Then it says if he participated in any conflicts or wars. And interestingly, it says none, because War Against Japan was actually his first combat. He did not participate in the Patriotic War, for obvious reason. He stayed in the Far East, preparing for the war against Japan. Wounds or concussions or blast injuries, that's number 6, none. Otherwise, there would be a date here, usually. His service in the Red Army, he joined in 1938, you can see, without knowing Russian, you understand the basics. Even if you're not fluent in Russian and don't read Russian at all. And then last but not least, one before last actually, it says if he was awarded with any orders and medals previously, and it says none. Otherwise, again, there would be a date and there would be a declaration. His home address, that was covered, it's not available, but it's not really of any importance to us. And then explanation of what it is that he did. And this is the most interesting part. He participated in the liberation of southern Sakhalin Island. Now, the wording is very curious. Sakhalin Island was divided between Russia and Japan in the aftermath of the Russo-Japanese War in 1904-1905. And ever since, the southern part of the island, and I can show you on the map where the island is, and this is a huge island, very large, near Vladivostok, and not too far anyway, and it's very close, pretty close to the mainland, and it's very close to Japan. So Japanese considered it their own territory for the longest time.
Right.
It was divided roughly in half between Soviet Union in the north, or Russia before that, and Japan to the south. And of course it was of strategic importance because Japanese realized very well that whoever possesses the entire of Sakhalin can very easily cross the strait, La Perouse Strait, and get to Hokkaido, to one of the main Japanese islands. So the Russians call it liberation because they claimed it prior to Russo-Japanese War. They claimed it as their own. And that was, of course, a bone of contentions and possibly one of the reasons for the Russo-Japanese War. So his goal, his participation in the war was to attack the southern part of Sakhalin Island. And his particular role was, here it says that he took part in the landing of a landing party of naval infantry at the port of Tora. And again, let's look at the specific place. This is the wonderful thing about Soviet war documentation, that you can actually pinpoint the place and the date. Look at this. This is a book on Soviet naval history. There are several volumes, and this one in particular is on Pacific Fleet. And it's in Russian, but you will find the same map with English text. And you can see the date of the operation on the map, and you can see this particular port of Tora.
Yeah.
Right here. So it was one of the successful Soviet landing operations in that war. And the war was very brief. Here, actually, unlike some other places, Japanese put up a very serious fight. It was very fiercely defended, and it kind of teetered on the brink. For a few days, the whole operation was very close to failure. He, while on the trip, while crossing the strait, and this is called Tatar Strait, so he had to cross right here from the mainland. Sovietskaya Gavань is the name of the port where he started going to Tora. He took an enormous care, according to the document, about the naval infantrymen, which is interesting because think about it. They are going in a tiny boat through the strait. The weather was pretty bad during that operation, maybe in gale or near so, stormy wind, stormy sea, and they were probably not feeling very well. It took a long time in that small boat to cross the strait. So they were probably needing some comfort. Not the best place to be for somebody who is not used to sea maybe so much. Then while following through the strait, he dedicated his whole time to make it more comfortable, while approaching the enemy shore during the very difficult, as they say, meteorological conditions, meaning very bad sea.
Bad weather.
Yeah. He constantly maintained communications with his unit, meaning maintain the cohesion of the unit, of his ship. While the landing party was disembarking, he showed courage and decisiveness. He was the first to get to the enemy shore, and took measures to accept the plank that was used by others, commanded basically the whole disembarkation of the infantry on the same day, on 16 August, and remember it corresponds with what we saw on the map, at 20 o'clock, meaning 8 o'clock p.m., he took another landing party, a platoon of machine gunners, with all of the equipment and weapons and ammunition, and again, in very difficult conditions, crossed the strait once again during the night hours, again maintaining cohesion with his unit, and disembarked the landing party extremely fast. Throughout his participation in the campaign, he not only maintained the connection with others, but also took measures to watch the air, to watch for the possible air attack. And because of that, because of his courage and because of his skills, he is thereby deserving of being awarded his Order of the Red Star. But then, as we already saw,
Which was changed
to
Ushakov.
well, still Order of the Red Star, next in command, Captain First Class, who was at that time commanding a naval base. But then at the end, it's the commander of the fleet who takes decision to award him this Ushakov medal.
So it went back and forth.
Well, it went first. It first went well for him. He was getting
Red Star.
Red Star up until the last moment when the top commander decided that maybe it's not worth it for Red Star for whatever reason. Although this is what we typically see Red Stars awarded for, left and right, especially in the last days of the war. But Ushakov medal, luckily for us, we got Ushakov medal, which is now that we got this one done, let's look at another one. Same idea. I'm not going to go through it again, but it's the same book where we found, this is a copy of the page, and we found this particular person. We see that the award serial number is 7876. Here's the award serial number. This is his name, Tuterev Georgy Georgievich. Guards seaman, meaning that he served on a guards vessel in a guards unit, elite unit. Order of the Red Banner Baltic Fleet. And the award was bestowed on December 10th, 1944. Again, date first, then the month, and then the year. Going to the websites, you find information. One other valuable tool I almost forgot to mention. When you are on Podvig Naroda website, it gives you a synopsis of the person's service and awards. So there are pages that show you actual award commendations, like what you see here. But there's also a synopsis of service, very briefly, or at least service during the war. It won't go beyond that. But service during the war. And it will show place of birth, it will show all those things that you find in the commendation, plus it will show all the awards to this person, not just decorations necessarily, but also medals, like in this case, Medal for the Defense of Leningrad. And here's the important part for an English-speaking collector who is not fluent in Russian. This can be, because it's in digital format, can be translated online using Google Translator. So you may not be able to translate the award commendation, although even that is doable.
Igor, I found that one of these research sites has a language switch.
That's probably Podvig Naroda.
I think it was Podvig Naroda. You can actually select the language in which you want the
Right. I
information
don't
to show.
think it will show you translation of the actual commendation.
No.
But it will show you the
But
synopsis.
the synopsis, yes.
And even if it doesn't, you can do it yourself. You can just use Google Translator. It will do it for you. So you'll have all this information that you see here, which is quite a lot actually, already. And on some day, we will have a special episode where I will familiarize our viewers step by step how to do research online. We will actually have a computer screen in front of us, and we will go step by step to make it easier and to make it available to all. So after we are done with this, next step is to actually look at the award recommendation. So it says here, again, what he is recommended for, Ushakov medal. It says that award card, he was recommended for Ushakov medal from the beginning. He was a motorist of a guards squadron of torpedo boats of Baltic Fleet. Guards seaman, private seaman, Tuterev Georgy Georgievich. Ushakov medal. Born in 1926, so a pretty young lad at that time when he was recommended. A worker, social class, sometimes it says, nationality, ethnic background Russian, party member. Here it says that he's member of VLKSM, Young Communist League. From what time in the Navy? 1943. So as soon as he reached draft age, basically he was drafted. And participation in the previous conflicts, none. No combat wounds. And then we get to the actual deed. Again, a very interesting operation. During the landing, again, it's a naval assault. During the landing, during the first landing on the island of Dago. Now, on 2 October 1944, he was in his machine section, an engine compartment, and operated the motor of the boat. Very interesting operation again. This one was taking place near the shores of Estonia. This is one of the main islands of Mansund, Russians called it archipelago. And Daga, there are other names for it, is one of the 3 main islands. And this island was the key to the rest of them. There are other names, you can find them by the name Zarema, and other islands also have more than one name, depending on what language you use. But in Russian sources it's Daga, and on 2 October indeed they launched their first very successful assault. The goal of the operation was to clear these islands and make the waters around them safe for the Soviet ships. Because these islands of, it's called West Estonian Archipelago, they control access from the Gulf of Riga to the south to the Baltic Sea to the north. And they also largely blockade the Finnish Gulf, the Soviet part, Soviet side of it. So it was absolutely important to get the Germans out of those islands. They occupied them since 1941.
Right.
And they built pretty significant fortifications there, knowing that how important that island is. And to make it worse, the islands are surrounded by shallows. So it's very difficult to get there using capital, any larger ships. You need to use small boats. Islands themselves are pretty flat, nondescript, but in the absence of natural obstacles, Germans put a very significant lines of defenses there, and also used some of the Russian defense lines that Russians abandoned and Soviets abandoned in 1941. They put some shore batteries there, aviation. It was a formidable obstacle. So Soviets were very successful in the capture of the first island. Germans largely evacuated the second one. They took a stand on the third one, and we'll get to that, I think, in this commendation. So while he was in the mortar section, his boat received a hole under the waterline, and the water started pouring into the engine compartment. He was the one responsible for pumping out water until this task was completed and the landing party disembarked. He also took part in the first attack on the island of Ezel. Now, Ezel is the third and most important of the major islands of this archipelago. And that's where Germans really fought very hard. They didn't want to retreat. In fact, they even sent an infantry regiment of reinforcement, infantry division, of reinforcement. It was attacked by 2 Soviet corps. Soviets were able to occupy significant part of the island from the beginning, early on, within probably a week or so. But then the battle dragged on and on. Germans fought very hard for the westernmost peninsula that's jutting out of the island. And it took 2 months to finally clear it. And Germans were actually able to evacuate some of their personnel, a significant portion of their personnel. So anyway, he was in the first attack. The reason it says first attack, because there were 2 additional landings on the island when Soviets tried to circumvent German defenses and land on that peninsula itself, on the western peninsula. They were completely unsuccessful. So he was very lucky to be in the first assault. If he were in the second assault, the third assault, he would survive. So he acted in the battle with great decisiveness under enemy fire when his cutter, his boat, was immobilized. He helped to get it off the shallow, and because of his courage and masterful command of his skills, he deserves the State Award of Ushakov Medal. His commander, October 1944. That's fairly early date for Ushakov Medal. We often see later issues, even going into 1946, 47, based on further recommendations. This is the decree that you can also get online, which lists every recipient from his unit, Order of Red Banner Brigade of torpedo cutters. And other information about him, if he were awarded with any other decorations, we would know, but he didn't get anything else as far as decorations go. He did get some medals, meaning a number of awards of lower rank. And those are listed in the synopsis. Patriotic War, second class. Now this one is from 1985. It's a so-called Jubilee version. Medal for Defense of Leningrad, so he was there. Ushakov Medal is mentioned first. Medal for Victory over Germany in the Patriotic War. So the standard for a war participant, if he lived to 1995, which he obviously did, he would receive also a second class Patriotic War. So this is our case, study case number 2. And now we will get to this peculiar case of the award with the customized ribbon.
Right.
It's an Order of Red Banner of Labor ribbon that was made to look like Ushakov Medal ribbon, which I think is very cool. Again, the name of the recipient was established using the book, using the serial number in the book. And here we have recommendation, and it says that his position was machine gunner or anti-aircraft operator of an anti-aircraft machine gun of the gunboat Volga. Now it's very easy sometimes to make an error in the spelling, in the abbreviated, especially handwriting. So it took some effort, but it's not one would think a submarine PL, but it's actually Kanonierskaya Lodka, KL. KL. And that means cannoneer boat or gunboat Volga. Of BSK. BSK stands for Brigada Штральных Кораблей. And that stands for littoral waters warships, warships operating in shallows, in shallow water, which is what much of the Baltics, especially on the Soviet side, is. It's not passable for bigger ships oftentimes. He was a seaman, pilot. Orlov Boris Alexandrovich. Funny enough, Orlov, we just discussed another Orlov, same last name, so it's a very common last name. But this is where we get first on patronymic. He was recommended initially for Medal for Valor. But then that was changed to the more appropriate Ushakov, because Ushakov medal is equivalent of Medal for Valor for seamen. 1923 is the date of birth, nationality or ethnicity Russian, social status, very important, worker, social class. Party membership, he was a member of the Communist Party, doesn't say where he joined or when. From what time in the Red Army or Navy? From 1940, again obviously drafted,
41.
a conscript, and then stayed because of the war. Participation in previous wars, none. He was wounded once, it says, on 9 August 1942. And was he ever recommended for any other awards? No. Any other awards of any kind? Medal for the defense of Leningrad, obviously Leningrad defender. And then to the actual feat, to the actual achievement. While he was conducting a combat task to defend his area of operations, he was in the defensive role with his gunboat, he was on many occasions attacked by enemy airplanes. And on 9 August 1942, and we remember that he was an aircraft gunner.
Right.
On 9 August 1942, after several extremely fierce attacks of the enemy airplanes, they finally able to straddle the Volga, the gunboat, with a series of bombs. Machine gunner Orlov skillfully operated his weapon in a very cold-blooded, very calm manner. He continued precise fire at the enemy dive bombers, and while doing so, he was seriously wounded by a fragment of an enemy bomb. But he continued to man his machine gun. He remained at his post throughout the battle. Despite his wound, Comrade Orlov, he found enough strength to help another sailor to liquidate numerous apparently shrapnel hits to his machine gun and make it operational again. And then he also gave first aid to his commander who was wounded.
Wow.
Comrade Orlov, only after that, well, he was second time ordered to leave his post. Only after second time that he was ordered to leave his post, he did so.
True hero.
Until then, he would continue at his post despite his serious wound. In 1943, but that's not all. So it's 1942. We are talking 2 full years before, from August, well, almost a year and a half at least, from 1942 to late 1944 when the war. So it's a very much cumulative award, and we remember that in 1942 Ushakov medal didn't exist even.
Right.
And of course, Navy was particularly slow with commendations for whatever reason. So oftentimes sailors were not recommended until pretty late, and often awards were cumulative for several different actions of good conduct throughout the war. In 1943, he also showed examples of excellent service when he was repairing apparently combat ships. He always overachieved his work quota while doing so by 300, 400%, which is incredible. In February of 1944, when on combat patrol or conducting the combat task, he supported a naval landing operation in the enemy rear and in Narva, in the Bay of Narva. And again, showed extraordinary courage and bravery. Under artillery fire, when the enemy got under fire of enemy shore batteries, he watchfully manned his machine gun and conducted the safety of his ship from the enemy aerial attacks. While the ship was returning to his base and Levensari, it was attacked by enemy airplanes, and Private Sailor Orlov, was the first to notice, as they call them, enemy pirates, aerial pirates, pirati, воздушные pirati. He opened a fire with everything he could. He gave it gave them full greeting, and as a result, one of the enemy airplanes, Ju-88, which is two-engine bomber, dropped altitude and continued to descend, disappeared. So it doesn't say that he shot it down,
right,
but very likely he either damaged it or at least,
he interrupted
the
bombing.
Right. For his outstanding courage, decisiveness, steadfastness, and valor in combat, as well as during the labor on his ships, obviously. He thereby deserves to be awarded with medal for valor, and it's written by the skipper of the gun. Conclusion of the superior officers changed to Ushakov medal by the superior, and that's exactly what he got. And last, on this subject of researching, I do have to notice one, you can say, unfortunate case, and that is when we couldn't find anything. And I have one medal here. Let's see if I can find it here on the desk. Oh, here we go. Where, yes, there is a number. It's a legitimate medal. By the way, you can notice that it's a very late award. Not only by the serial number, which is among the highest. Remember, I mentioned it. Under 16,000 were ever issued. This one has one of the highest numbers ever seen.
Right.
Not only that, but look at the suspension device. Remember how World War II suspensions always have a self-locking pin. This is the construction. It's two-piece construction of the suspensions made in steel. Both of them are in this regard the same, but the pin is entirely different. This is your typical World War II pin, which connects hooks onto itself. There's a hook, and it's a one continuous wire. Whereas on post-war suspensions, even early ones, there is a hook that is a part of the suspension device. And the wire, the pin connects, kind of goes under this hook. This is how you unpin it. So it's a late suspension and very late serial number. This medal was made just like the others during the war, but then put on a later suspension. It's still a standard suspension in the sense that it still has the same very professional connectors at the top, and it also has an absolutely correct chain. These links are original. These are World War II vintage links, every single one of them. Correct size, correct peculiar grooves that we discussed before, and without a doubt, this is a very late issue. And when you look in the book, you literally won't find this number. There are numbers around it, but this one is a big mystery. Number 15369, if I see correctly.
15369, that's right.
It's not there. There are numbers that are higher a little bit. Don't go very high.
53.
There's number just
379 is the first one in the 1500s.
in 15,000 range. Yeah.
Oh, they're not.
Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. So, a huge mystery. This would need to be researched through the archives. It's entirely possible that the information is still classified. Remember, we had a medal that was awarded to a sailor of a boomer sub, of a strategic nuclear sub. Very possibly it's something like this. Very possibly
Still
it's
classified?
something still very classified, and it therefore didn't make it into the book. So this medal has a huge potential for research. God only knows what it will bring. Someday this information will become open, and it will be an interesting thing to find out.
Oh, yeah.
So this pretty much concludes our talk for
Fascinating.
today about Ushakov medal. I do think it's a fascinating subject.
It is.
Very, very, very special medal in the Soviet medal inventory. Well, and that leaves us with just one thing. What do you think? I don't know about you, Vlad, but I am thirsty as hell after all this.
I concur.
I think we need to do something.
I think
about
we need to do something about it.
I think I just have the way to alleviate the problem.
I hoped you would.
Vlad, guess what just magically appeared on the table right in front of us?
I knew I had a reason to work here.
Yeah, it's your lucky day at work. It's bring your wine to work day, and and what we have is,
Can we have bring you one to work every day?
we'll be working on it. It depends on your performance, but, but for today, what we have is a nice bottle of Pesak Lianyan. And do you know about it? Do you know where this appellation is?
I know it's well above average. I know it's, well, I don't really
It's
know.
not a
but
test. It's not a quiz.
But I want to pass.
You pass.
Okay.
It's the northern portion of Grav, and up until recently, maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, this wasn't even a separate appellation. That's why you see a Grand Vin de Grav. So it's the best the winery produces, but it's sub-appellation of Pessac-Léognan. And Pessac-Léognan is the better area of Grav. And for that reason, you rarely find it in American stores. It's mostly the British that scoop it up. And the British know Bordeaux.
Smart people.
Yeah. Listen, they controlled it for a good chunk of history. You know, all those wars between France, 100 Years' War. For much of it, Gascony and Bordeaux were domains of the British king, of the English king.
Right.
So they know, unfortunately, and that leaves little for us, but when we are lucky, we can grab it. Let's try. 2018 should be
a good
pretty
year,
decent
France.
year. Also, politically, it was a nice year, I think. So let's check it out. 2018, which is now what, 6 years? It's about right. I think. This should have a good portion of Merlot in it, but also for sure Cabernet Sauvignon. And the third grape, I don't know what they used on this one. It could be Cabernet Franc, it could be Petit Verdot.
There's the little...
Sometimes it's like oddball, like Malbec.
God, it's only in French.
No, it says in English here.
It is?
Yeah, Grand Cru Classé, Chateau Olivier.
The oldest, Bordeaux's oldest chateau.
Yeah,
That's good.
but it's of the same vineyard. Apparently not their first wine of that particular chateau. So it's La Dauphine d'Olivier. You see, it's Dauphin. The child. Yeah. So it's like Olivier is their big parent, which is very expensive wine. And incidentally, as both of us know, it's also
the author of the most famous
Russian quintessential salad.
Yes.
Like no Russian table for the New Year celebration is complete without Olivier salad.
No.
It's just unthinkable. And it's basically a niche of peas, cubed
potatoes, all cubes, small cubes. Peas, potatoes, mayonnaise,
some sausage,
mortadella, or maybe chicken
bologna,
or bologna. Yeah.
Few other components.
Boiled carrots.
Oh yeah, eggs.
By all means. Yes.
And it's delicious.
And for those who don't know, the salad was invented by a chef of one of the most famous Moscow or Petersburg restaurants.
Not sure. Originally, it was supposed to be with lobster meat. Do you know that?
Maybe.
The original recipe is actually lost. Nobody knows what it was in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It became madly popular at the turn of the 19th
So they had to
20th century.
substitute expensive
With
lobster
Soviet stuff, obviously,
right.
but Soviet, for every Soviet family
yeah.
would feast on Olivier salad. Which I wouldn't be surprised if this is a relative of this Olivier who owned the chateau originally. Anyhow,
he was the chef of the Yar.
Of the Yar, that's right. And that's Moscow.
And that's one of the Moscow, and that's one of the best ever
restaurants,
Imperial Times restaurants in Moscow.
And of course, French are responsible for inventing much of Russian cuisine. It was one of the benefits of actually capturing Paris in the Napoleonic Wars. Somebody called it war tourism.
That is awesome.
So let's give it
Smell the cork.
a sniff. Oh my God, this is heaven.
It's 2 cuts above what I actually expected, even though I expected a lot.
Pessac-Léognan is better than average Grab. And Grab is awesome in my mind, in my view, and the bargain still.
Excuse me, the cameraman has to take a sniff also. Oh, that's great.
Jed, why don't you?
No.
Just join.
No,
Just join us.
You deserve it.
I'm salivating from the sidelines here, gentlemen. You are too gracious.
This is fabulous. I think.
Oh,
Let's
it's
see
a
how it
threesome.
tastes. But it smells beautiful. Okay, let's swirl it a little.
Nice coating.
And give it a good sniff. Dust. Cherries, but not too much.
Oh yeah, cherries. Yes, Bing cherries, like Bing Crosby.
Yep.
I'm
Sour
dreaming
cherries.
of a
Sour cherries.
red Christmas.
Thank God, not too much Cabernet. Not too much plum.
Oh,
If any.
plum. Yeah. Oh, nice bouquet.
Okay. Very well. To the taste. Not bad. Some very good tannins, but rounded.
Wow.
Not too hard. Not a stretch.
6 years.
Igor,
This
please.
is just about-
One day you'll need to introduce us to some bad wine. Okay?
Oh, will I do that?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
you-
too
Let me
late.
get some from Russian store somewhere. Maybe they have some Russian wine. And
We're getting too spoiled here. We need some taste some
Soviet
bad
time
wine.
Russian wines are probably collectibles right now. Fetch a good
there's
price.
some terrible swill that's made in New Jersey.
Oh,
Like
seriously?
awful. Yeah,
Yeah?
they try, but poor people. There's some very good American wine. We'll get to that at some point. Riesling, for example, from New York State.
Yes, whites in New York
Whites,
State. Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, they're good, right? Yeah.
Gewürztraminer.
Right. We'll have to have the audience sniff it. Yes, you sniff that? Yes, just get close to the monitor. Okay, and then take a sip.
Tiny little bit on the heavy side, maybe because,
Yes.
Because of the Cabernet. It has a big amount of Cabernet.
but it doesn't.
Cabernet, by the way, plum, I wouldn't necessarily associate Cabernet with plum. Maybe,
Vanilla plum. I don't know. Any
they like the dust, the dusty smell.
yes.
Yeah, isn't this
Yes.
great?
Yes.
Whatever terroir is in the wine.
Dusty cherries.
Yeah,
Awesome.
beautiful.
So smooth.
Ah, beautiful. Even better than I expected.
Wow. Smooth as a baby's butt. Olivier's butt.
Yeah. This is what it means. A good producer. Olivier is a famous estate, a famous chateau in Pessac-Léognan.
Yes.
Very expensive. It's Grand Cru class, hundreds of dollars per bottle.
Oh.
Yeah, some wine, and it's worth it too. I was lucky to drink wine of that level a few times, just to compare that. And I tell you, there is no exaggeration. It's not BS.
Yeah.
It's worth every penny of it. There's a humongous difference between cheaper wine and real expensive. It's not just hype.
Oh my.
Now, this may be marginal improvements, like for every $10 you pay, extra
Yes.
you pay.
Yes.
But there are definitely improvements. You can tell. You don't need to be a specialist connoisseur or anything.
Well, if I understand correctly, the level of risk buying a bottle like that is also. I mean, if you just buy it from a store,
A
And
reputable
not
store
from the
will return
vineyard.
your money. I actually had that situation
do?
a couple of times. Yes, when it's spoiled, and
Okay.
they bring it back soon enough.
seriously.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that store in Tenafly that I just showed you today. Remember, Jenda, we were passing by it
Yes,
on our way
yes.
to the diner.
It's a legit.
It's a legit
establishment.
place. Yeah, run by a Korean guy.
Oh, okay. Honorable Korean.
Very
immigrants.
honorable family
Yes,
business.
yes.
In Korea.
Yeah, people like that make America
Great.
Was it? Oh, that's the word.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, I was thinking about
May
grape.
I say that?
No, but yeah, make America grape. No, I mean
Grape again.
great. Make America great.
Make American great.
Oh my
That's a
lord.
tougher order. Although
Doable.
I don't know. I tasted once in Napa or Sonoma. I don't remember. We did some winery hops, and I tasted an amazing Cabernet.
I'm not surprised.
$70 a bottle.
$70.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. It's not that America doesn't have great tasting wines. It has fantastic wines that beat French wines in international competitions on a number of occasions. But it's just damn expensive.
Yes, yes.
Like Opus One, which is fantastic wine. Not necessarily my type of wine, maybe, that I prefer, but by any measure, absolutely knockout. $400 a bottle.
Wow.
I would say
400,
equivalent French wine, maybe 150.
Right.
Maybe.
That's the thing.
By a factor of 3.
No, not factor,
Because of
but
cost.
3 times less.
Oh well,
not,
yeah.
Not 10 times
No,
less.
of course,
but,
yeah.
Or 1,000 times less.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Something of that.
That's
of that
incredible.
magnitude, yeah, unfortunately.
Wow.
Very expensive.
Mm.
What's reasonable is New York wines. I don't know, either they get some
Not
tax
Reds, though.
breaks.
I don't think Reds are.
Not Reds are probably not worth it. Although, speaking of Soviet wine, you know, there was this great, I mentioned in our discussion of Caucasus, Defense of Caucasus medal, that Caucasus is the great agriculture area, at least parts of it.
Mm.
And among other products, they produce wonderful wine.
Right.
And it's not just one wine. There are many varieties of grapes that are grown there, ancient
You're talking
grapes.
about
Caucasus,
Georgia
yeah.
wines?
Georgia, yeah. And both white and red.
Mm-hmm.
And I just recently bought a bottle of wine grown here, made here in the States, but of Georgian grape, of one of the native Georgian grapes. At the same place where I buy white, it's Keuka Spring, it's called, and it's a winery in upstate New York.
So they probably used
Yeah, they
American technology with Georgian grapes.
I don't know. Georgian grapes, if you buy them at the right place, but you need to know because
But
a
they
lot of
make
it is
them
just
in a weird
just
way in
garbage.
those huge
So what?
ceramic.
No, that's some of the wine you don't want in oak barrels. They deliberately, like white
They
wine,
do
for
it on
example.
purpose, I know.
White wine does not need to be aerated while it's being made because they don't do maceration. They don't use peats. Remember the tannins
Oh. I
that they
see.
need for the red
A
wine.
different process.
It's
yeah.
it's a different process, and therefore they use it and they make it in steel tanks.
Mm.
Champagne manufacturers use both. It could be some percentage of steel tanks and some oak barrels, or sometimes just one, and that could be new oak, old oak, or it could be steel. Steel is not necessarily means bad wine.
Wow.
Stainless steel. Has
The
a
Georgians use those humongous ceramic vats
That's great.
that they dig, that they put under the ground,
Yeah.
I guess for stability of the temperature, for
Underground,
coolness,
And guess why clay?
and white clay.
Aerate, because clay allows
Yes,
some air
yes.
through, and you need that so the wine can mature. Because
Clay?
clay pots allow some of the air
I
through.
have no idea.
Yeah. That's why brick houses or houses with stucco, they allow some air through. Same thing.
Wow.
So it's like natural ventilation.
Natural
in
ventilation.
places especially where you don't have air conditioning.
Bad insulation, but good ventilation.
It's pretty
yeah.
decent.
Interesting.
insulation, too.
That's interesting.
Because
Wow.
air holds temperature. Air is a natural barrier,
Mm.
That's true.
thermodynamically speaking.
Fantastic. Wow. My Lord.
Okay, well, on this note, gentlemen.
Oh,
This
yes.
very optimistic and delicious note.
Yes. To the captain.
To the captain.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, another 30
To
years.
the crew.
Okay.
To all the
How do you say? Cheers? Or
Cheers.
what do you say in Russian?
На здоровье.
На здоровье.
На здоровье.
For your health.
Okay, for your health.